Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Rise News channel. My panels on the show today are Achike Chude, civil society activist, author and social political affairs commentator, Jide Ologun, a legal practitioner and national advocate. Okay, hello everybody. We go to Abuja. Achike from Abuja. Achike Chude, good to have you here. Thank you for being online. How are you doing?
It's always a pleasure. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Fantastic. So, gentlemen, let's get into it. We've had a couple of guests. We've talked about the situation in River State. We've talked about the situation that we're having elsewhere as well. But they're all tied. You know, these are all legal issues that are bringing things together. So, let me just get your impression before we go into question. A very quick reaction. We start from you in Abuja, Achike Chude.
Oh yes, if we are talking about, I think you mentioned specifically the Rivers incidents, the Supreme Court ruling, I think obviously puts the governor of Rivers State in a very, very difficult situation. Obviously, the state cannot be run without the funds that are supposed to get to the state every month. And so it's going to be a very big dilemma. Then he now has to appear before, you know, an assembly that, between them, there has not been any love lost, obviously. And so he's been asked to present whatever budget that has to be presented to that House of Assembly. And how he's going to do that is going to be a problem. But since the ruling of the Supreme Court is final, then there is no other place to go to. So he has to eat humble pie, I think, for the moment. Obviously, the situation with the 27 members that they camped from the PDP has not finally been settled by the court. Because the ruling of the court, from what I read, has to do with the allocation of resources to the Rivers State government. So he has to appear before that assembly and then do what is necessary, what he has to do. Like I said, there's been no love lost. But at this particular point in time, what should be uppermost in the minds of the people of Rivers State, especially the gladiators on both sides, members of the State House of Assembly, and then the governor and his acolytes, must be about the interest of the state. How are they going to move the state forward? So regardless of the bad blood, the existing feud that exists, they must look for a way. They must dig deep, you know, and eat the humble pie. Not for their own sakes, but for the sake of the state and the people of River State, and do what needs to be done to move the state forward. And then perhaps outside of that, also look for ways to see whether they can reconcile whatever differences they have. The reality is that problems are created by human beings, but solutions to problems are brought about by human beings. Only if they have sufficient political will, and then if they do not have very negative advice from other quarters outside of their own immediate constituency, then perhaps they might be able to move the state forward. That is it. Otherwise, we can also not discount the possibility that there could be breakdown of law and order from other, other factors contributing to the breakdown of law and order. And that can only happen when they give the malcontents the opportunity to create crisis in the state. In the state,
indeed. We come to Lagos. Mr. Ologun, what's your take here on these matters? Two guests we had, the election generally, because we talked about the NEC and lessons from the past, and then of course River State.
You're talking about the NEC and lessons from the past. I quite enjoyed the expose on the need to hold NEC accountable. But my position has been that even with the Electoral Act amendment, INEC is still left with quite a number of discretional powers. For instance, even though we have introduced the IREV and all those technological equipment, they have not been made mandatory by the law. So the National Assembly can still look further into that. So INEC will tell you when it comes to implementing the elections, that they have discretion. But again, talking about the politicians, it may be a difficult thing, and that is why it took a long time for the Electoral Act amendment to even see the light of the day. Because politicians are always looking at, will it affect me positively or negatively? You saw the controversial section that was debated for a long time, which stated that if you are a political appointee and you need to contest at the primary level, you must resign. Eventually, it was implemented, and it helped, and that saw the likes of Amechi out of office, So those are the issues. We need to learn, hold this umpire accountable. And I quite agree also that if money was made available for the elections, then you should give the citizens what will prevent the perception that the judiciary determines winners of elections in Nigeria. And that is not the situation. If the umpire did a clean job, there would not have been a need to go to court, because part of the processes of democracy is your fundamental human rights to challenge results you are not comfortable with. And of course, in the USA, for instance, we didn't see politicians rushing to court. In Ghana, an election took place recently. The politicians didn't rush to court. So I think those areas, and again, the issue of electorate education, and that is going to be a difficult one too, because, for instance, generally, electorates are aware that good governance will lead to development. No. But in a country riddled by poverty, the consideration may not be good governance. It may be the perception some have, as described by the former governor of Ekiti State, Ayodele Fayose, stomach infrastructure.
Might be the prevailing thing.
When elections come, it's time for us also to eat part of the national cake. But by and large, I think we've come to the point in Nigeria when our focus should shift from politics to governance. And if that is the case, both on the sides of the politicians and the electorate, then we begin to experience less flexing of muscle and abuse of the rule of law. And on the case of Rivers State, it's quite interesting. And I must say, I do not envy Governor Fubara at this moment at all.
Oh, yeah, he's had a very bleak Friday. Exactly. There's no need to envy him. This is not the time. Maybe you envied him in the past, but
and then,
not now.
My very good brother, my learned friend, Jide mentioned, yes. Sometimes it's good to look at the whole context of the law. And if you look at Section 109 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, talks about the defection.
The tenure of
exactly,
and Chapter 5, second part of the
just like the case of Shylock in Merchant of Venice,
yes,
that had a contract that if you breach this contract, I'm entitled to a pound of flesh. But when the lawyer got to court, he said that though you are entitled to your pound of flesh, it's not written in the contract that you should shed blood. So go ahead, have your pound of flesh, but please, no single drop of blood. And that is the beauty of law.
Yeah.
And again, he also alluded, and I totally agree with that, with Section 131 of the Evidence Act 2011,
yes,
that when you allude to some facts, it's your business. We call it burden of proof. To prove those facts.
He was
this have come to play. But again, like we know, and Chude has mentioned it, Chude and Achike has mentioned it, the matter of the status of the members of the House of Assembly who defected has not been fully resolved. But the Supreme Court has just come in to try and introduce sanity to the polity in Rivers State. And some of the questions that were prominently asked are still there, because I was also disturbed by what happened to the House of Assembly.
Yes.
You see, so, and what Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says is that the state shall abolish corrupt practice and abuse of office. So, and you can also give definition to abuse of office, even though governors enjoy immunity. The citizens also are entitled to accountability, because I asked then, whose money will be used to reconstruct this House of Assembly? So when the power battles are on, please be considerate to the citizens.
And institutions. Thank you very much. Well, we shall definitely be following these developments as they go on. In what looks like a break from the norm, the APC last week held its first National Executive Committee meeting. That's the first one since August 2023. The meeting at the party's national headquarters was attended by party chieftains, including former and incumbent governors and members of the National Assembly. Last year, a scheduled meeting of the APC's National Executive Committee was postponed indefinitely with no official reason for the postponement. The ruling party has been criticized for not holding the meeting of its National Executive Committee lately. So they've had this meeting now, and I don't know. Achike, Chude, were you one of the critics for not having the meeting? Did you criticize them for not having this meeting? Did you? Let's see. I want to see somebody who criticized. I did criticize them for not having it, but you go ahead. Where were you, Achike, on this matter? Were you patiently waiting, or were you pointing fingers?
Well, no, we were watching the polity, and we had our opinions.
Now
and
the
course, we
meeting
now
has
have
held.
an opportunity.
Are you happy now the meeting has held?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Now that the meeting has held, what do you have to say?
I'm not a member of the APC, but obviously, when the APC is the ruling party, whatever they do also has implications for the politics of the country. Obviously, they were not living up to their own constitutional provision, which says that meetings have to be held quarterly. So they have been in violation of the laws of their party, and that does not speak well of the party. And I don't know whether it is because of the battles recently that they've had, the ongoing battles that certain members of the APC have been having with the former governor of Kaduna State, who accused them of not having a NEC meeting all this while, and then that also galvanized them. I don't know what role that played in galvanizing them to have this party. But well, they say all is well that ends well, and they have moved along that direction. Hopefully for the good of the hopefully for the good of the party. But it is but it is symptomatic of the fact that the party has, even though that it emerged victorious in the 2023 election, but the house has not been in order. If the house had been in order, then obviously you would have had all of these meetings in place. Of course, you know that the very first meeting they had, I think the one you referenced sometime last year around August, September or so, there was a change of leadership. Yes, there was a change of leadership. And so there's been all manners of crisis, in the house of the APC, which hopefully, after this NEC meeting, perhaps they might begin to put their house in order. But if you would also permit me, because I was not privy to the previous, discussion on INEC, and I think it is critical that I make some of these contributions.
I know you're passionate about that.
The reality is that. Elections, we all know that elections are supposed to end at the polling booths, but they no longer end at the polling booths. So elections do not end the day elections are supposed to end. That is the day of the election itself and the announcement of results. Elections end when the courts say that elections have ended, when they make a determination on who won an election or not. And I think we must look for a way. As they say, a radical problem, situation calls for a radical solution. And so we must look for a radical solution to the issue of the courts interfering with our electoral system. If there is a way we can even remove this from the courts in the first place, I know it is revolutionary, it is radical, but we also have to help the court to save it from itself. Because part of the crisis that the court has had, part of the crisis that have weighed down, weighed on its credibility, has been the fact that, politicians would always be politicians and would always look for ways to manipulate the system for personal gratification. And so the issue of corruption swirling around, the courts, especially if you remember some years back, the discussion between, I think, Justice Kayode Esho and one other distinguished luminary, legal luminary, was about how some judges had become billionaires. This played out in the public space, and it was shocking to hear them say that some justices of the court have become billionaires as a result of, petitions that come before them after elections. And so we can't continue. That's why I say we have to help the courts to save themselves. We have to help the judges to save themselves. But if there is a way, there are some countries in this world where elections are not determined by the courts. If there is a problem with the election, you cancel the election and all that, then you have to call for a re-election where everybody would also have to be on top of their game to ensure that the right things are done. And then the process of also electing or appointing or nominating and appointing leaders are those who are going to, man the affairs of INEC, either at the national level and the state level, the national commissioners, the chairman of INEC and so on, must, again, like I said, I'm not exactly sure. If you look at the Justice Owai's recommendation, that there has to be a way of ensuring that the people who benefit most from the electoral process should not be the ones appointing those that are going to, supervise the elections that they are going to participate in. You must look for a way to get, to move away from that if we want to have sanity within the electoral space.
I think we're going to talk more as time goes on with the role of electoral umpire and the judiciary for electoral process. Jide Ologun, APC has held its Congress. Are you happy now?
I should be.
You should be. Okay.
At least that they've done what the constitution of the party requires. And some of the takeaway from there is the constitution of a reconciliatory organ for those who are aggrieved, because apparently some key members of the party were absent from the meeting. You talk of the likes of El-Rufai, you talk of, because he has not defected officially as we speak, you talk about the likes of Amechi and some who are not hiding their concerns. Who knows if they
invited Rufai? He called for the meeting, then he didn't show up. Do we think they didn't invite him, or he still did not show up?
I think there has been reports lately of trying to consult some other politicians. Definitely, and that is what we say. For politicians, 2027 is about 3 days away. So there are a lot of consultations going on, overtly and covertly, and it's all about the power shift. And that is why you heard what Amechi reportedly said recently, alluding to the fact that politicians kill, and some responded by saying you need to mention the names of such politicians. And thereafter, the book of IBB came out, and things. So for them, is power plans. But the meeting has held, and one of the issues is, as expressed by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, who is the arrowhead of APC now, that there's a need to have a bigger secretariat than they have now. So for APC, the party is galvanizing to ensure that the opposition.
Well, let's hope they don't use Nigeria's money to build their secretariat.
Your hope is as solid as the hope of Nigerians.
Very
but
good.
If you understand the terrain of Nigeria,
you see that. The meeting, what's going on? The meeting was held in Abuja. Let's come back to Lagos, where it has been more drama and chaos in the tussle for the Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly. The impeached Speaker, Mudashiru Obasa, returned to the Assembly during the week, still claiming to be Speaker. At the same time, security aides of his successor, Lagos first female Speaker, Mojisola Miranda, were withdrawn in her absence. Obasa attempted to conduct legislative proceedings, compounding the week-long battle for the Speaker's seat. And meanwhile, authorities of the Assembly has directed all staff and legislative aides to work. Acting Clerk ATB Otun issued an internal memo to staff members, citing safety concerns amid growing tensions with the legislative body. The directive mandates all categories of personnel, including the Lahasacom staff and legislative aid, to work from home while maintaining communications for channels for potential assignments. According to the acting clerk, the leadership of the House approved the measures as a precautionary step pending the resolution of the current crisis around the speakership position at the Assembly. So they're allowed to work from home. Interestingly, this counters the intention of the executive, of the governor that was just a couple of weeks ago, saying people should come back to the office to come and work. Those ones went home because of COVID. These ones are going because of Obasa and Miranda. So that's another kind of virus. You're a Lagosian like me. What's going on here?
You know, the directive of the governor of Lagos State was attached to the hardship prompted by the increase in the price of petroleum and some other inflationary impact on the economy. And he has directed that they should resume again, I think, in a few weeks from now. But that of the House of Assembly is prompted by insecurity concern. And it touches on the system we have. I read that the security details of Miranda, who was declared as the new speaker, got withdrawn, even though later we read some of them were restored. And Obasa, went into the House with about 4 members' support to assert his speakership. And I also read that the mace was not available because there are some insignias that must be available for you to even conduct. And the majority of the House of Assembly members came out to say we reject Obasa. Yeah. And Obasa stated that, fine, the action he's taking is his own action. And we know also that he has a matter in court in respect of his removal. So, and like the question I asked here, is it now the rule of law or the rule of force? You see, and these are issues that should be of major concern to us. And I think the judiciary also must show interest in this. If you have brought a matter to court, that drama was unnecessary.
Yeah.
If you didn't trust the court, you could have embarked on that drama. So we are waiting, and the members of the House of Assembly in Lagos, quite a number of them are asking the leadership of APC in Lagos that, what exactly are you doing? Talk to us. I mean, we are available. In fact, one of them specifically mentioned that we are from different constituencies. Yeah. And I think the agitation now is about maintaining the hold of the party on Lagos State, knowing that politicians have their supporters, and it's so easy for them to defect and join forces with some opponents. So I wish the party the wisdom of Solomon to resolve this. So, but having said that also, above all, I wish the Nigerian citizens the fear of God in the hearts of leadership to make it a government of service, so that this power tussle, how I wish this power tussle is exercised
in the
direction of bringing the pump price of petroleum to 70 naira per litre, and ensuring that we don't have band A, band B in the energy sector, that we have access to the basic amenities that will make us enjoy the land.
That's a strong point, yeah. Which a conflict were for the interest of the people.
Exactly.
Achike, Chude, are you seeing what's going on in Lagos, or have you left us to our devices? Don't forget your roots.
No, I couldn't have. I mean, absolutely. My root is in Lagos, and my heart is also there to a very large extent. And there is a place here in Abuja that's called, I think, Games Village. I stayed there briefly. And sometimes when I want to mention Games Village, I call Computer Village, forgetting that I'm now in Abuja. So exactly. So, well, the issue is complex and it's also simple. Obviously, Speaker Obasa, if you are looking at the numbers, I think Barrister Ologun, talked about the fact that when he came to the Lagos State House of Assembly to resume, in his own words, there were just 4 members that were there with him, while the majority, about 75% of the membership of the Lagos House of Assembly are behind Miranda. Now, that is a problem for Obasa. Of course, we know, like we have been told constantly, that politics is a game of numbers. So if it's about the numbers, the Obasa, the former speaker, does not have it. And he's not likely going to have it unless matters are resolved among every single one of them, in the sense that the other people that are against him have showed their hands. They've shown their hands. And so if Obasa returns as speaker, they will be conscious of the fact that he might not take kindly to what he might perceive as their act of betrayal. So that means that they are likely going to dig in to ensure that he does not come back. But again, all of these people that are involved in this are just...
that there will be no vendetta. Don't you trust him? He has promised that there will be no vendetta if he comes back.
Well, we know politicians. I think Barrister Jide Ologun has talked about the traits and characters of the politicians, and I'm not sure consistency is one of the traits that it depends on what is at stake. It depends on what is playing out as interest at a particular point in time, and that is what determines what they do. But again, who knows? There might not be any vendetta, so we might not exactly dismiss what he has said. But what I was trying to say is that these people are minions. They are minions. There are some other people. I'm not saying others are pulling the strings, but there are others that can also help to bring stability to the Lagos State House of Assembly. The fact that this has continued till now simply means that those people have not played their part. And who am I talking about?
Leadership.
I'm talking about two principal. It's leadership. Thank you very, very much.
A leadership vacuum.
So who am I talking about? The former governor of Lagos State is influential. It's his territory. It's his home turf. So it depends on what powers or what he has conceded to the governor of the state, Sanwo-Olu. So he can decide to call all the warring, actors. I mean, for a meeting, summon them, and then they have a resolution that can be done. Don't forget that when we had the problem in Ondo State with Ayedatiwa, following the demise of the former governor, that they were summoned to Abuja, where they had a meeting to try to, come about with a resolution. So that thing can be done within 24 hours. Perhaps the people have not been prompted by certain circumstances, but I think that it is something that can still be brought
into space.
To a resolution, a quick resolution. Yes.
We shall keep watching and see what's going on. In the meantime, the media space in Nigeria is currently dominated by controversy involving Senate President and the senator representing Kogi Central District in the National Assembly, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan, who is one of the just 4 female lawmakers in the Senate, accused the Senate President of making inappropriate advances towards her during her past visit to the country home of the Senate President in Akwa Ibom State. Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan told Arise News that the alleged incident took place last December, a day before both of them marked their birthdays. That allegation comes in the wake of a heated session in the Senate last Thursday, when the Senate President ordered the Sergeant-at-Arms to remove her from the chambers following a dispute over seating arrangement. She had, after that, slammed the 100 billion naira suit on the Senate President for allegedly defaming her. Here's what she said earlier about the dispute with Senator Akpabio.
Then we all moved to his house in Uyo, which was about 8 p.m. And he held my hand and said he wanted to show me around his house. My husband was walking behind us, just 3 of us. We're walking around from room to room. And then he got to this particular sitting room and he said, "Do you like my house?" I said, "Of course, sir. Every room, beautiful, nice interior, quality taste." He said, "Now that you're a senator, I'm going to create a time for us to come spend quality moments here. You will enjoy it." At that point, I just pulled away and I was like, I don't really understand what exactly that meant. And the Senate President is allowed to counter that. We're in his house in the Kotek Benin. Then we all moved to his house in Uyo, which was about 8 p.m. And he held my hand and said he wanted to show me around his house. My husband was walking behind us, just 3 of us. We're walking around from room to room. And then he got to this particular sitting room and he said, "Do you like my house?" I said, "Of course, sir. Every room, beautiful, nice interior, quality taste." He said, "Now that you're a senator, I'm going to create a time for us to come spend quality moments here. You will enjoy it." At that point, I just pulled away and I was like, I don't really understand what exactly that meant. And the Senate President is allowed to counter that.
So those are the allegations that Senator Natasha Akpoti has made against the Senate President. Very witty allegation, I must say. Just, to balance, I repeat those allegations. On their side, we've had some other further developments, one of which the wife of the Senate President has gone to defend her husband A lot of people expectedly, but I say luckily, you never know what can happen. To defend her husband, we've heard other voices that have doubted or put something on the, some spin on the position of Senator Akpoti. Whichever we look at it, quite a messy one, isn't it? Achike, Chude, I come from you. A messy situation in the Senate.
Yeah, well, you know, we would prefer that issues of statecraft dominate the pages of newspaper and the media spaces. Unfortunately, it's salacious stories that we are forced to hear. Obviously, it's not good for the country. Obviously, it's not good for the institution of the Nigerian Senate because this has a way of rubbing off on everybody, of tarring everybody, you know. So it's unfortunate that it has happened. The Senate President, obviously an accusation has been made against him, which he has denied. The wife has stood solidly behind him, that she believes in him. But coincidentally also, Akpoti's husband is not left behind. He has stood solidly behind the wife and believes the wife. So now, it's a matter of you said, I said. So when it gets to that level, obviously the Senate has set up a committee, that's the committee, the ethics committee, to look into all of this. But then you're talking about a very powerful person within the Senate, that is the Senate President, and a senator that is also very, very visible. Now, how is the ethics committee going to wade into this particular matter without undue interference in their work, in an attempt to unravel exactly or demystify what has been what the allegations that have been made. That's why I think Senator Akpoti was asking for an open and transparent inquisition into this particular matter. Whether that will happen, I'm not sure. But again, you know, when you throw light into some of these things, when you throw them open, it has a way of exposing some things. Of course, some of us will remember the infamous or famous totem agenda, the discussion on the floor of the Senate, when it was made open. It was said that a lot of senators who were inclined to vote in a particular manner dared not do so because the light had been shed on the floor of the Senate, and it was being beamed. It was the unfolding drama was being beamed live to every household in this country. So a lot of them had to eat their words. So I guess that when it gets to the issue of you say this, I say that, then it becomes a matter of evidence. Like I said, this is something that we would have preferred not to get into, but it is already distorting the Nigerian political space. And so there has to be a resolution of that crisis. And I hope that the Senate President will not be found wanting. But again, that would mean an indictment on Akpoti. So again, it's not about taking sides with anyone, but he has had this issue in the past with the former lady, I think Joy somebody from the Niger Delta, who said, yes, thank you, who also made a similar allegation. Now, this is, one allegation is bad. Two allegations, is one other allegation too many. And I do not think that that is the way, we should go.
Well, Jide Ologun, you have not been accused of anything, are you?
Not at all.
Not at all. At least not up to now. Let's go ahead, yes.
Except that we want good governance in Nigeria.
Okay, that you are guilty of. Your desire for good governance, you are guilty of. Yes.
See, this is a legislative matter. And there is what we call, under the Constitution, presumption of innocence. These are allegations. And as a legal practitioner with bias for human resource management, it's not an easy allegation to establish, but it borders on discrimination. And now, let's give the framework. Senator Natasha is narrating that there was a time she came to the floor of the Senate and she spoke. And the Senate President responded, "This is not a nightclub, that you must wait to be given the floor."
The floor.
You see, now the issue of the change of seats came up, which she didn't find funny. And the National Assembly leadership responded that some have had their sitting position changed in the past, and now is the allegation of sexual harassment. And I hope it can be established. We just came out of the case of Delifa Rotimi and the Lane Silk, Afe Babalola. So I do not want, when it comes to dealing with personal issues, that we bring in allegations that cannot be substantiated. That is on one side. On the flip side, if indeed sexual harassment is established, then let the law take its course, because those who make laws for us should also be seen to be law-abiding. Because what Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says is that the National Assembly shall be empowered to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good governance in Nigeria. And for the spouses standing behind and solidly their spouses. We remember the case of Bill Clinton in the US when he was also alleged to be crossing the boundary towards his secretary. And the wife came out to say, we've been cooking this soup for long. Don't come and take it away. You know, so there are issues. But someday, by and large, and I'm talking to office now, maybe we'll be reading books that'll be making some confessions, like IBB. Like IBB is making now in the future. But for those who are in office, please be careful. You know, I teach on discrimination in the workplace, sexual harassment and things like that. Please be careful how you deal with the opposite gender. You know, it can land in trouble.
Think these are two crucial points to take away. Achike Chude makes a strong point, and it's a pity that we have to talk about. We should be talking about things like this instead of laws that will improve our life. You appeal to people to be careful. The case we have in front of us is a case of facts, law, decorum, and decency and honesty. And I think with time, all actors will be examined and we shall see what it is. But whoever knows should say, and let everybody be very careful, as Pastor Jide Ologun has warned, or the philosopher, the moralist. Let's all be careful whatever we do. And in Chike Achudi's word, let the Senate go back to a place of law and policy, not this kind of thing. Is a pity. Moving away from that, at least for now, let's go and see that the President of Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu, this past week, signed into the law a 54.99 trillion naira appropriation bill for the 2025 fiscal year. Tinubu signed the budget in the presence of principal officers of the National Assembly and top government officials in a small ceremony in his office in the State House, Abuja, on Friday. The bill was passed by the two chambers of the National Assembly on Thursday, February 13th, after Tinubu asked for an increase for the initially proposed 49.7 trillion naira. So, a bit more money, signed in. What are your expectations, Jide Ologun?
You know, my expectations is that at the end of the implementation, it will end up being of benefit to the citizens and advancing the fortunes of the nation. Because when you talk about budget, you're talking about projections. You see, so to what extent are we going to invest on capital ventures, or is it going to be recurrent? Because as we speak now, this budget also is moving side by side with the indebtedness of the country and the need to revive the business environment. So I wish the government the best, but I will always be on the side of the citizens. So we want a budget that will not just be sweet sounding in theory, but that we deliver good governance to the citizens.
Achike Chude, have you seen all that money?
Yeah. Well, you know, we obviously need to be optimistic. I think the essence of a budget is, I think it's the government's economic plans to transform the lives of the people socially and economically. And I think from what the president says, that the objective of the budget is to restore macroeconomic stability, enhance the business environment, foster inclusive growth, employment, and poverty reduction. You know, they are targeting about 34 trillion naira in revenue. But we have, and then of course, 15 trillion will be used for debt servicing. And if you look at that, that's also talking about maybe 25% to 28% of the budget itself will be used for, debt servicing. That, again, is a bit of a problem. And then there is a there's a deficit of around 13 trillion naira. So where are we also going to get that money? So these are the issues. And of course, this budget is coming against the backdrop of the severe economic situation that the country is having. Well, they've done all their calculations, so we hope that ultimately at the end of the day, we will begin to see light at the end of the tunnel, because Nigerians have been in the tunnel for so long. We have had budgets over the years and then at the end of every single budget year, we do not see anything to reinforce that hope that was promised us during the presentation of the budget, from budget of hope to budget of consolidation to budget of, they give it all manners of names, but all these things are just mere names. We hope that that the wishes of the president in terms of what he intends the budget to achieve will be met. Because if these things are met, then it implies obviously that Nigeria is now moving, is now on a better footing. Words are cheap, as they say. So let's see how all of these things will manifest in the daily living of Nigerians.
Achike, in less than 1 minute. The wishes of the government are quite clear, and I think anybody who wishes Nigeria well, we want those wishes to come true. Is there anything people outside government can do to help the government achieve their wishes?
Yeah, well, I think so. I think, look, we have often talked about the enormous potentials that can be unleashed, with at the level of the informal sector. That sector has to be, encouraged. Whatever it is that the government can do to encourage the informal sector, and just ensure that they have access to energy. That would unleash their capacity to be able to produce meaningfully towards the national GDP. Of course, you know that the informal sector has always continually done well in terms of, adding to the growth of the country's GDP. I think that can be done. And then, of course, the private sector, too, has also done exceedingly well, especially in the financial sector. But again, those ones also need some level of encouragement from the government. What the government needs to do generally, like people say, is lay the foundation for these businesses to thrive. And then they would fly. Well,
fingers crossed, everybody. Let's move away from Nigeria and go to outside Nigeria, where the U.S. President, President Donald Trump, on Friday night, said that Ukrainian leader, President Zelensky, overplayed his hand during their extraordinary Oval Office clash. He is accusing his visitor of wanting to drag out the conflict with Russia. I want a ceasefire now, Trump told reporters while departing the White House for his Florida estate, saying he wanted fighting in Ukraine to end immediately. The U.S. president accused Zelensky of looking for something that I am not looking for, quote unquote, he says. He's looking to go on and fight. The Oval Office face-off came after Trump said Ukraine will have to make compromises in truce with Russia, which has occupied swaths of Ukraine, destroying cities and towns along the way. So, according to Trump, Zelensky does not want to stop the war. He's looking for a way to fight, as Trump says. What do you think? You have some kind of sympathy for Trump. Let's confess.
I do not.
You do not? Okay, I take it back. I used to suspect you of that, but
I just like his frankness.
Okay.
And he has brought it to fore again. You see, Zelensky was in the Oval Office to discuss a deal that would benefit his nation. Then Trump also brought in the issue of resolving the crisis between Russia and Ukraine. And Zelensky was expressing hatred. And Trump said, with this hatred you have, you are not likely to come to any compromise. Then we may not resolve these issues. That my interest is peace in the world. And I quite settle for that. You see, one of the lessons I've learned in life, in conflict resolution, is that you move away from the personality to focus on the issues.
Yeah.
In fact, in the law school, we were taught to keep our gunpowder dry, and you focus on issues. By the time you begin to personalize issues, you may not resolve
those issues.
And I think I score Trump high on that, hey, let's end this thing. Who is benefiting? There are some wars that at the end of the day, there won't be a winner, neither a loser. And in such a scenario, you have lose-lose. So, but then, you know, the president of Trump, and he re-emphasized it that, hey, if you want me to be out of this, my concern is America, my country. You can go ahead with your war. But I hope that Zelensky and other leaders in the world will also learn that at the end of the war, you still come to a compromise. But what about the destruction that has been, you know, we just spoke about River State now. So who builds the House of Assembly?
Let's go to Achike, because clearly Jide Ologun thinks Trump was provoked. Achike, what did you see?
Look, what happened at the Oval Office is what happens every time when there is crisis and people have to sit down to negotiate.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, diplomacy was being played out in the public space before the media. Yes. And that is where the problem, that's where the problem, arose.
Is the camera...
you look, it is the cameras that were there. And Trump said something. He's a media person. He said, look, that he's sure that what has happened is food for the media. Yeah. And that was just the truth. It's unfortunate, because these are things that are done behind the doors. There's a lot of shouting.
But they both have media people. Zelensky was a comedian before becoming president. Trump was, what was he doing? He was into showbiz. What's that?
The apprentice. Yeah, the apprentice. Yeah, see, he ran the apprentice for a very long time.
Yes, we keep following Achike. We have to roll out now. Time has flown away. You've been watching this day live on the Sunday Talk Show here on Arise TV. I'm Anthony Kila, and from the entire team in Lagos, it's bye. And thanks very much for watching. Thank you very much, Jide Ologun. Thank you very much, Achike Jude. Thank you very much, everybody. It's goodbye for now.